Is it possible that the monsterverse has not seen the last of Mechagodzilla? Over the years, Godzilla and Kong have faced down their share of threats, and were only first brought together by the might of Apex's first synthetic titan. As the answer to protecting human interests against the might of the titans, Apex sought to create a weapon capable of standing up to even the most powerful of titans, and this gave way to the creation of the Mechagodzilla program. Mechagodzilla, though, was seemingly destroyed by the combined efforts of both Godzilla and Kong. So then, why do the fans remain adamant that another adaptation of Mechagodzilla is still out there somewhere in the monsterverse? Well, today, Heralds of the Titans, let's talk about this persistent theory. The idea comes from a combination of Mechagodzilla's different forms and the current state of mutant cybernetics. For this, we're specifically going to be looking at the version of Mechagodzilla known as Kiryu, who first appeared in 2002's Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla. Over the years, Mechagodzilla has had a few different iterations with slightly varying origins, and this particular iteration of Mechagodzilla wasn't completely mechanical in nature. In fact, there have actually been 6 different Mechagodzillas in the franchise predating the monsterverse, and the Kiryu version was actually a hybrid between living flesh and cybernetic enhancements, or at least what used to be flesh. Unlike most other Mechagodzillas, he combined the organic matter of a previous titan with human-crafted cybernetic enhancements, which we believe is the key to this theory, and the return, or the realization, of the real Mechagodzilla. The Godzilla that we know and love from the Heisei era is actually the second Godzilla of his age, and the first was killed by the Oxygen Destroyer all the way back in his very first appearance. Since the debut version of Godzilla from 1954 is not actually the mainline Godzilla from the remainder of the subsequent projects, Kiryu and the humans behind the project were able to take advantage of the previous Godzilla skeleton. Kiryu was constructed around the bones of the original Godzilla, and Godzilla's predecessor was grafted into a skeleton that this newly improved Mechagodzilla could use. Once the augmentations were complete, Godzilla's restless spirit eventually reawakened within Kiryu, and after some prolonged struggling, it was able to overpower Kiryu's programming and take control over the newly crafted body of Mechagodzilla. Now the original Godzilla was in full control over a brand new body, though his mental state had deteriorated a great deal, and he was not as sharp as he had once been. This story bears a striking resemblance to what happened in Godzilla vs. Kong, but we believe that there is way more going on. In Godzilla vs. Kong, it wasn't Godzilla's skeleton which was used, but instead, Apex repurposed the severed head of Ghidorah in order to create a psychic link between the skull and the suit, as the head was all that remained after Godzilla's fight with King Ghidorah. After this, however, the rest of the main plot beats carried out in pretty much the same way with Mechagodzilla. Ghidorah's restless consciousness was able to eventually hijack and pilot the original Mechagodzilla, but other than this oversight, the Mechagodzilla program was a promising venture. After all, the idea of defending humanity from rogue titans without having to rely on Godzilla or Kong is a worthwhile venture, and now that they've learned, is it possible that they're going to try again? The defense of Apex is something that we've touched on several times in previous videos, and the synthetic titan programs almost always seem to come down to user error. When entities like Ghidorah or Raymond Martin, the Titan Hunter pilot, are given control over these massive machines, then of course it poses a substantial threat. But that doesn't make the suits themselves defective. If Ghidorah was the problem, then could someone like Apex or even Monarch create a new Mechagodzilla with a new, more trustworthy Titan at the helm? And if so, do we actually know which Titan they would choose? This obviously would not be easy, as finding a good Titan is easier said than done. We know that Godzilla quite obviously is not dead, and therefore nobody should be able to use his skeleton in order to create a new Mechagodzilla. But we do know of another dead Gojira that may be next in line, and could be the birth of Kiryu. One of Godzilla's close friends and a fellow Gojira, Dagon, not only has been unearthed by human archaeologists, but has a much more benevolent history with humans than even someone like Godzilla, and far more benevolent and caring than someone like Ghidorah. Dagon was once regarded as a protector of humanity in the ancient lore, who was more friendly towards humans than Godzilla ever was. Dagon was even proactive in his protection of his people rather than being reactive. Godzilla doesn't dislike humanity per se, but his objectives extend beyond simply taking care of them. He values the balance of the ecosystem beyond any one particular life form, titan, human, or otherwise. And we've just been lucky so far, and humanity has been on the right side of Godzilla's interpretation of this balance. This doesn't guarantee that this will always be the case though, And if Apex or Monarch is able to learn from the Mechagodzilla failure, then they might be able to single out Ghidorah as the problem and create a new, good synthetic titan. If this is the case, then it's theoretically possible that the Mechagodzilla Mark II might actually be an indirect attempt to revive Dagon, providing him with a new body to pilot as he did all those years ago, much in line with the Kiryu version of Mecha G. If we are to take Kiryu's origins and transplant them into the monsterverse, then Dagon is the perfect substitute for Mechagodzilla. This is also in line with what we've seen in Godzilla x Kong, where Monarch addresses the idea of augmenting the Titans to work in humanity's favor. Project Powerhouse was a direct response to the Mechagodzilla failure, and the whole idea was to give Kong the strength to defend himself against enemies who were even stronger than the Alpha Titan. This is where his iconic gauntlet now came from, as this was actually a prototype meant to make Kong stronger if humanity ever needed him. They directly addressed the idea of Titan augmentation versus synthetic Titan creation, and we believe that the next version of Mechagodzilla may take notes from Project Powerhouse. In Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla was seen as the antagonist because of his destructive quest against Apex Cybernetics, which we now know was a quest to shut down Ghidorah. Before we learned the truth though, it showed us what a malevolent Godzilla would look like if he ever decided that humanity was now a threat. If he ever decided that balance was more important than the survival of humanity, then he would not choose to save us, but Dagon just might. Dagon could have the compassion and empathy towards humanity that might allow him to be a more faithful protector, and this could just be crazy enough to inspire someone in that position of power to try to create Mechagodzilla Mark II with Dagon, or the real Mechagodzilla. This may result in a MonsterVerse adaptation of Kiryu, and also give us a glimpse at what Dagon may have looked like in his prime. While Dagon himself may not be completely revived in the flesh, we could get some insight into how he conducted himself, and why he was so widely beloved by humanity among the Gojira specifically. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of the story of Kiryu and Mechagodzilla Mark II? And would you like to see something like this be adapted in the MonsterVerse? Will we see another iteration of Mechagodzilla closer to the Heisei era? If so, would Dagon be the ideal candidate, or would they choose another Titan to helm Mechagodzilla Mark II? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the channel today. Atomic blast that subscribe button if you haven't yet, and I hope you're having a great one.